I know you, my sweet. You're a sharp-clawed, treacherous little peacock.
To behold your glory and receive your law. What have I left undone?
Nearly 70 years ago, a filmmaker named Cecil B. DeMille created one of the most unforgettable epics in Hollywood history, The Ten Commandments, a film that didn't just tell a story but built a temple on screen. Part faith, part fever dream. Made with over 14,000 extras, more camels than anyone could count, and a budget that soared to $13 million. But the version the world saw in 1956 was not the whole truth. Hidden beneath its thunderous music and divine spectacle were lost scenes, forgotten experiments, and a story about the man who nearly died bringing it all to life. Before Moses ever split the Red Sea in glorious Technicolor, DeMille had already told the story once before, back in 1923, in a silent film so ambitious that newspapers called it a sermon in stone. It was part biblical tale and part modern warning, a moral lesson carved into sand, and it made DeMille the high priest of Hollywood grandeur. But 30 years later, as television began to steal the world's attention, DeMille decided to resurrect his old masterpiece, bigger, louder, and in color. He told his crew, "We will tell this story again, but with a power and realism that only sound and color can bring." And so began a 4-year odyssey that would test the limits of faith, filmmaking, and human endurance. Research teams traveled across Egypt and the Middle East, gathering ancient stories and archaeological notes, building a script that mixed history with divine imagination. One early version even began with Genesis itself, showing Adam and Eve, Noah's flood, and Abraham's test of faith, connecting the Exodus to the dawn of creation. But Paramount executives feared the movie would become too long and too costly, so the grand opening was cut. What survived was DeMille's haunting on-screen introduction, where he warns of tyranny and faith, a trace of what might have been an entire cinematic book of Genesis. Some believe he even shot test scenes for it, though no footage has ever been found, only storyboards, sketches, and fragments buried in archives. What did survive, though, were effects so astonishing and terrifying that they pushed audiences to the edge. DeMille wanted every plague to feel real, not symbolic. He told his team, "The audience must not just see God's power, they must feel it." The result was both beautiful and horrifying. One deleted sequence showed the plague of frogs, with live frogs swarming palaces and leaping into food bowls. But audiences laughed or looked sick, and DeMille, furious, cut it out completely. Then came the angel of death, drifting over Egypt as a silent green mist created from smoke filmed underwater. It was so eerie that early audiences called it too real, yet DeMille refused to soften it. "God does not need thunder to be heard," he said. The result remains one of cinema's most haunting scenes. The Nile turning to blood was a chemical experiment shot live, with red dye transforming clear water into a translucent crimson flow, so convincing that early viewers gasped in shock. The parting of the Red Sea, still one of the greatest effects ever made, was filmed using massive water tanks and reversed footage to make the waves rise apart like divine hands. It wasn't digital magic, just physics, patience, and faith. But behind all that wonder was a production cursed by exhaustion, heat, and tragedy. Filmed in the deserts of Egypt, the Ten Commandments nearly destroyed the people who made it. Cecil B. DeMille himself collapsed from a heart attack on set, while climbing a sand dune in 120-degree heat. Doctors told him to rest, but within 2 days he was back, directing from a stretcher saying, "If I must die, let it be making a picture about God." Extras fainted from the heat, makeup melted, and sandstorms tore through cameras. Anne Baxter, who played Nefertiti, fainted inside her golden headdress, and Charlton Heston's glued-on beard left his skin raw. Animals collapsed from exhaustion, sets crumbled, and local workers spoke of strange accidents that made some believe the film was cursed. Yet despite it all, no one quit, because they believed they were building something sacred. When the film premiered, it was more than a movie. It was an experience. Audiences gasped, cried, and covered their children's eyes during the plagues. Some theaters even dimmed the lights less during those scenes because people were panicking. Critics called it divine, terrifying, and unforgettable. It became the highest-grossing film of 1956 and one of the greatest achievements in cinema history. Yet the story didn't end there, because buried under the California dunes lay another version of the Ten Commandments. The original 1923 set that DeMille ordered literally buried to prevent reuse. For decades, it was thought to be a myth until archaeologists uncovered it in the 1980s, finding sphinxes, columns, and hieroglyphs preserved like a time capsule of early Hollywood. DeMille's lost city, hidden under the sands, became a symbol of the old film giving birth to the new. By the time DeMille completed his 1956 masterpiece, he was 75 and in failing health. But he had built something eternal, a movie so vast and sincere, it felt like a prayer in motion. He stood on the edge of his massive set for the final time, weak but triumphant. Knowing he had created more than entertainment, he had carved belief into film itself. 3 years later, he passed away, but his work lived on. No one has dared to remake the Ten Commandments since, not because they can't, but because some miracles belong to another age. An age when directors built oceans by hand and made faith visible through light and smoke. What's your favorite moment from the Ten Commandments? Tell us in the comments below. And if you love discovering the secrets behind Hollywood's greatest legends, make sure to subscribe to Hollywood Bulletin and press the bell icon so you never miss a story.